Yeah, so this is the Risk Working Group meeting for May 22nd. Um, and this is the agenda that we have, which I'm sharing. And uh, right now, we want to discuss just SPDX changes. Right now, there's a scanner in Augur that follows the three. I believe, which spec does it follow, Matt Snell?
Um, it was the latest SPDX once we built it, so let me look that up.
2.1 probably.
What is it?
Likely 2.1 because we just released 2.2 at the start of the month.
Yeah. Follows the SPDX spec 2.1. And then there's going to be major changes to it. And that's going to be actually a jump to 3 point something, right?
Actually, right now it's 2.2, and it's going to go up to 3.0. And the 3.0 is where the security as well as the pedigree and provenance are going into.
Okay. And then if we look at the open chain, I'm just getting my head around a little bit. And where should we be thinking about risk metrics when it comes to open chain? And what kinds of things are they? Like I listened to one call, but I didn't make a connection yet.
So where they're looking at it is, is it trusted? Is the partner in your supply chain trusted enough? And does the person in the supply chain know how to handle open source? And it's not, and it's asking for an SBOM, but that's what it is, a binary. And so I think there's a questionnaire, a self-assessment. And I think I think just basically the same way with CI, we trigger off of the questionnaire there. I think just triggering off has the participant self-certified, but it's at a company level, not at a project level.
Okay.
Right. So that's where it's sort of a different.
Yeah.
It's company to company, and so what's your risk of working with a company who may be developing things?
Okay. So would it be like similar to what we've done with CII, where we have a CII badging metric that we show if a project is badged?
The challenge here is that for CII, we're doing it at a project level. Okay, and that lines up fairly well with risk for projects. This metric is for companies.
Yeah.
Okay, and are the in the same way as are these does a company have an open source project program office? Does it have a supplier infrastructure that knows how to work with open source? These are elements at a company risk level. And, if you're working with a company, can you trust that it's respected certain things, like knows how to deal with open source, knows not to strip out the headers, things like that.
Yeah. If I crosswalk open source projects with companies, there are obviously some companies like Red Hat Software have a lot of projects that they oversee.
Yeah.
But in many cases, they are not the principal contributor. So how does I guess does anyone have a thought? I'm trying to, in my head, I'm like wrestling with how do we crosswalk company? Is there a way, or is it useful from a metric perspective to crosswalk company certifications with open chain and particular projects?
I'm not quite sure it does at this point.
Yeah.
Focus this year. I think it's more like the elephant factors and the participant stuff. It's elements in that area. We've got metrics in other areas which are talking about, is it dominated by one big company or not, and things like that. And maybe a nuance in that area might be, does the company have a history of knowing what to do about open source? I.e., an open chain might be a way of assessing that. So eventually it could come in, but I think it's a second order.
Okay.
After we get to the managers. Go, Matt.
Yep. So on that question, one of the things we do in the CHAOSS project is we simply try to articulate work that is already being done, like
Mhm.
capture that. So, for example, you had mentioned like determining whether or not an upstream vendor has maybe an OSPO. I don't know if that's actually what's looked at, but something along those lines. And I mean, we do develop metrics that already exist but haven't been articulated.
Yep.
That can be an option as well. So basically, just trying to document the work that's
Mhm.
already being done in OpenChain.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
don't. That's
So OpenChain isn't looking at OSPO or not, for instance. What
just
OpenChain is looking at is, a very limited set of criteria of has there been training done on open source?
okay.
You know, is for the products, are they able to produce a software bill of materials?
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And so, is the right level of discipline in place that they can generate that? And for large companies, it takes a lot amount of effort to finally get to the stage where they can generate that. And we're going to be seeing more push coming in that we're going to want to be seeing these software bill of materials. You're going
Right.
to be seeing, so one of the things is like in the healthcare sector, there's a strong push towards making sure that medical device manufacturers can generate a software bill of materials and hospitals can take and query it.
Right.
Okay. And there's proof of concepts going on exchanging SBOMs right now in that area. So we're going to see, I think, and automotive needs it as well. And it's coming in from the security side, but it's valid in a bunch of other spaces too.
So we do in the CHAOSS project, we do have the metric around the SPDX document, as an important thing to look for, which I know is kind of related to the SBOM. I think it is. There,
It's an SBOM.
we're okay. It's an SBOM, yes. And then, I mean, maybe you had mentioned training as well. Is there a formal way that within OpenChain that training is understood?
Yeah, OpenChain makes available a set of reference training materials for companies to use inside their own internal training programs.
Okay.
So they harmonized open source training from about 4 or 5 companies
Okay.
into a unified deck that's CC available,
Yep.
and people can take and modify and use internally to explain certain concepts.
Okay.
And so there's one of the criteria is that a certain portion of a company, of the developers that are working with the software have taken this training.
Okay. In OpenChain, is there a determination of whether or not that has happened, or is it kind of done in good faith?
There's actually a criteria that people self-assess. However, there's the ability to do third-party assessment too.
Okay. But that could be a metric.
Yeah.
On this, I'm looking under the categories, the different focus areas, and transparency could be one.
Sure.
And this could be part of the transparency focus area, that there's a representation of adhering to the open chain training materials, or adherence, whatever the best word is.
Yeah, like you say, I don't know if they measure that. They just ask for has their training happened, and they provide a path for doing it if they don't have it on their own.
I mean, so would it be useful, Matt, do you think, to provide some, I guess I would call it an orthogonal metric that's not looking at repos at all, but is just providing a directory of companies that are certified?
No, it was so, like, for example, in risk, one of the metrics that we have is OSI approved licenses.
Right.
So a measure of OSI approved licenses.
Right.
And I mean, OSI obviously is an organization that sets kind of these standards, or sets this approval process as kind of a gold standard as to what licenses are.
Right.
And we have a metric that measures that. Like, do you adhere to the OSI or do you how are the OSI licenses represented? And with training, I mean, one of the things we could do is basically saying, listen, OpenChain is the place to go when it comes to internally training your developers and your managers around open source.
I see. So we could direct people towards OpenChain when it comes to.
Yeah, and the metric would be, have you a determination of engagement with the open chain training material.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And would we, so that's, I guess, does that get to a metric? And is the metric tied to a company, or is it tied to an affiliation for an individual developer, or a percentage of developers from companies that have had the training?
Yep.
I'm just I'm just, trying to figure out, okay, what is the metric we operationalize here?
Yeah, the metric could be the number of upstream vendors who have essentially adhered to the training, or adhere is a bad word, but have taken part in the open chain training.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be the metric, that I care about my upstream, and I care how many. So if you scroll down to transparency, right now we have the SBOM down there.
SPDX document.
Yep.
I don't know, I guess.
I've got a question about this, just clarification. So we have this kind of metric that kind of measures, are you participating kind of? Are you doing this right? So are we looking to validate that in any way, or are we just saying this is a good way to, something to look at?
Well, I think it's just the latter. It's kind of like the CII.
Gotcha.
It's not quite, I think, as badged as CII, but
Yeah, like I say, OpenChain doesn't really map into, CII maps to projects, so we're good that way. This is a different dimension, I think, which is, something we're looking at a company level as opposed to a project level.
Yep. So would it be okay to say the metric is something like the number of upstream, the number of upstream companies that have adhered to the training? That's not at the project level, but it's
the number of, so I would say it'd be the number of participant companies in the project that have adhered to the
okay.
training would be a way of weaving it in.
Okay.
And so what you're sort of doing is using this as a proxy for, are these, are the people participating in this project fairly knowledgeable about working open source in general?
Yes.
So I phrased it in the share, I phrased it as percentage of contributors from open chain certified companies, but it sounds like it's a slightly different name. So give me something to tell me what you just said that we should call it.
She said the percentage of participants, I think is the word.
Participant companies.
Participating companies.
Who have a certain element, have a certain amount of sophistication around working with open source.
Would I call that open chain certified, or?
You could say open chain, like say, we're using open chain certified as a proxy for that, for
Yes.
knowledge.
Because if the answer is 0, that might be something that you care about from a risk perspective. That none of.
Well, yeah. The example is you've got you've got a bunch of you've got some domain. I'll give specifics if we're not recording, but right now you have some domain people that are.
We can pause.
We can pause recording.
Okay, so specific, and I.
Yep, that's fair.
Demonstrate that.
Yep.
Yeah. So depending on new market segments that are moving into using open source, there's different levels of expertise.
Yep. No, that's fair.
Yeah.
What is SPDX approved licenses in contrast to OSI approved licenses?
Well, they're not really. So SPDX approved licenses just means they've been added to the SPDX list.
Okay.
And so we have things like, we have licenses on that list that are part of the the FSF approved list that are not OSI approved.
Okay.
There's also licenses that are commonly found that are not OSI approved. For instance, the Creative Commons licenses are not OSI approved.
I see.
So it's sort of what can you find in so we're sort of like this is what gets found in the wild, and a summary of that.
So we're showing like OSI approved licenses, and I suppose Matt Snell, is it by implication when we list the licenses on the risk page that it's a SPDX approved license? In other words, are we already kind of doing that?
Well, all the DoSOX licenses and all the licenses we show are kind of, the ideas are pulled from the SPDX list. So I'd figure that's how we don't have any ones that aren't on that list, I should say.
Yeah, so the OSI licenses are a subset of the SPDX list. All OSI are on the SPDX list, but SPDX list has more than just OSI.
Right. This seems like one that we could knock out, maybe not today, but fairly quickly. Okay. Man, Google. I don't think it's you, Kate. I think it's Google. That's
Yeah, like
slow today.
Like I say, I'm looking at things in the doc. I'm not seeing your screen share at all. I'm not quite sure what's going on.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I don't know.
The upper left corner, do you have switch to screen sharing?
I do, but I believe
Kate, because I see his screen. I was just
You did it with mine? Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe.
It would be
Bizarre.
I have to. I'm creating the link for Google.
Gotcha.
And so now, do you see it? Like
Yeah,
a white document?
I use that little tag. I was looking at all the people's faces as opposed to that. And so I seem to have the ability to go back and forth between the tags or not. I may rejoin. It's a bit weird. Okay, I'm thinking that. The other thing I was wondering if we could squeeze into the agenda for today, by the way.
Yeah.
I did spend some time going through and doing a classification exercise on the tags.
Oh, that would be.
And I want to get a feedback if you think I'm heading in the right direction or I should do it. And I figured what I do is, I'm sort of looking at the top 200.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And I wanted to sort of see if what I was doing made some sense.
I would love to. Why don't we jump to that right now, and then we can come back to my question about the Alyssa project and how do I get to see what's happening inside of it? Because it's like it seems I have to give $5,000 and join the Linux Foundation.
No, you don't. It's all open. All the lists are open. Everything's open.
Okay.
Obviously, so we obviously need to work on our website. That's what you just told me.
Okay.
Fine. We'll deal with that later. I'm happy to.
Okay.
If you want to stop sharing, I'll go into share mode.
I stopped sharing.
Okay. Now I can see this one. Weird. Okay. You disabled host attendee screen sharing.
Oh, I think Matt has to make you, or I can make you co-host maybe.
Okay.
I cannot make Kate co-host, but Matt can.
You are now, Kate.
Thanks, Matt.
Yep.
So what I was doing here is working through sort of the top 200 and having a look and seeing if I could figure out patterns, which is something I kind of like doing. And the other one that's in here, I forgot to put is negation.
So these are the 200 most used labels across 13,000 repositories.
Right. And I was sort of seeing, the patterns I was seeing are, is this something that's a process check? Are you reporting on something, a requirement being met, but it's not really in the workflow?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a solicitation where someone is looking for an action to be taken in the workflow? Is it a classification for grouping and binning effectively things so that workflow can be prioritized? Is it an affirmation, which is basically signaling a task is done and can proceed to the next action, or is it a negation? Like a knack, and won't fix, things like that.
Those seem like, I mean, when I think of the comments and the tags that I see, those sound relevant.
Okay.
So,
I did a first pass at just starting to assign that type of, the type to it, to see if I could get some sort of insight. And there's certain ones that I just don't quite understand. Like, what's CSS here and, lifecycle rotten. That one I thought was quite interesting for many perspectives. And then I didn't understand the // and whether that, I like to get classification, but there was a lot of sig slashes, and I really didn't understand, because special interest group, you know, it sort of is, I'm not sure if it's a direction to someone to look at it or not. Or it's a subset of classification probably, but I couldn't really figure that one out.
What I can do is find out what repositories are using those particular ones, and it may be, you know, there's been no attempt in what I sent you to sort of identify number of repositories using each of these, right? So it could be that a very active repository is using lifecycle rotten. Like that could be the Linux kernel or something else that's very large.
No, not the Linux kernel.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that one. CNCF maybe, but not Linux kernel.
And V4 is quite popular.
Yeah, that was sort of like, not quite sure what's going on there.
Yeah, me neither. But those are ones that I'm making notes so I can look those up for you and find out where they're used.
Yeah, but like, you know, help wanted, okay to test. That's basically saying there's an action to be taken and we want someone to take an action. And then the classifications are effectively, okay, how do we prioritize what we're working on? And then, you know, an affirmation in some senses could be a solicitation. Well, it's usually signaling the state, I think. It's task done and signaling no further actions done for the negation. Like won't fix and so forth. Means sort of the end of the workflow in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Could it be special interest group?
What? Yeah, SIG usually means special interest group. I just didn't understand how it related to this label.
Yeah.
You know, there's also like, you know, team slash plugins, team slash, you know, CHEQE, that type of one.
These are the pull request labels, right, Kate?
Well, these are, yes.
Okay.
They look like, there's label counts across repos.
Okay. Yep.
That was what you put into the label counts across repos is where I was looking at it.
Okay.
So
the first thing I gave you, I definitely gave you pull requests first, so I think we're okay.
Okay. You know, there's things like update bot, which I sort of said, oh, it's a process check, and CLA is being signed, and in some sense this is a process check. Kind of how it sort of looked to me. But like, you know, PR action merge, well, yeah, it's someone wanting something to do, and kind question. That one, you know, I'm not quite sure where it goes now I think about it. But like kind flake, you know, there could be classifications. It's sort of hard to say. RGW, I had no clue. You know, and then the teams and kinds, like I say, likely they're classifications, but wasn't feeling ACK, you know, affirmations, so forth. So I figured taking and looking at the top 200, I haven't finished them all, obviously, but that gives us a reasonable, because there's a long tail here to put them out there. So the question is, where does one sort of drop it, you know, stop it off? But I want to see, you know, can we get some degree of coverage for some basic typing as a way of starting to build up a metric on the labels, the label usage in a project.
Yeah. And I think we can, like, one way to proceed is to suggest in the metric that tag. I mean, I think like I think the list you're working with is the issue tag list.
Okay.
By the way.
Mm-hmm.
But that's actually, there's a lot more tagging in issues actually than there is in pull requests in terms of like the number of different tags added to an issue. They tend to be, I mean, the numbers are significantly higher. If you look at there should be another spreadsheet that's called pull request tags in that folder I shared. And
those I would say could mostly be would probably have more of the solicitation and classification as opposed to issues. And I find it interesting that the top ones looks good to me.
Yeah.
And yes, which are effectively affirmations. Or,
right.
you know. are approved and looked to me, and then the other one is a CLA check. So that gave me, oh, okay, this is, because that's not going to be showing up in a workflow generally, but it's something that's necessary on the process side.
I wonder if it's a bot that puts those tags in.
It likely is. It likely is a bot that's basically looking for it and doing the cross-referencing. I guess that's an open question, is how many of these were generated by bots?
I think there's a way that we can determine that, because the person, the bot has an identity when they add the tag.
Okay.
And I think there's some kind of practice around labeling bots.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then, do you want to call it negation, or do you want to call it something else?
I couldn't think of another. Well, yeah, feel free to suggest better terms for all of these. This was just something I wanted that was reasonably neutral.
I don't have a suggestion other than negation. I'm sure as we go through the process, we can possibly think of something. It sounds negative, I guess, because the NEG is in it, but I don't know if that's a bad thing.
Well, it's basically signaling no further tasks. Kind of how I viewed it.
Yeah. Have we created in the, I'm looking in our list of metrics that are under review if we have started a document for tag classification. I don't see that we have. Taxonomy and types of tags, bags of words. Yes, we have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why I made a stab at it. And, we might want to subdivide it, but I was just trying to paint the picture of what I was seeing. And I was trying to figure out a flow for it, how they might relate to workflows.
Yeah, I think, so I'm going to look into the ones that have a lot of counts, but we don't really know what they mean.
Right.
And I can also look for bots.
Okay. Like I say, I'll send this to you. This spreadsheet to you. I'll just mail it to you.
Okay.
Then you can have it.
But I think, I don't know, what do others think? I think the categories work, at least as a starting point. And then I don't know if we want to, what we could do with those categories is we can get fancy and try to train a machine learning algorithm of some kind.
Well, I'd say put in other for anything else we can't put into the categories and see how much portion of the others there, and then start studying them. But,
yeah.
Does everyone have a different angle to look at these other than the workflow angle? Or the workflow lens?
I think I think it's about workflow. Some tags are about newcomer interests. Like there's some repositories that have things like good issue for newcomers, or good first issue. Obviously, right. That's not showing up as a highly used tag, but
so it is showing, like good first issue and that sort of thing. I did see that. I wasn't sure to put that as classification or a solicitation.
Yeah. And I'm just wondering so there's what are the tags that are used a lot, but then maybe there's our subjective, because what I think we're going to see is like some of these tags are just going to end up in a cluster of the highest tags. Like we'll end up ultimately classifying them some way as in the, like, looks good to me as an affirmation. There's probably a bunch of different ways that's essentially said, right?
Yeah.
In a tag. And so we can map similar tags at some point, so that they fall into the same micro category, maybe we would call that. And
Mhm.
we can begin with just this list of the top 200 and how they're classified. I'm really curious about things like life cycle rotten and like V4 and CSS are, I'm really curious what that all means. And if there's just like one giant repository that uses it all the time, or if it's actually spread across.
You know, these areas. So I still have a few more. Yeah, like I say, I still have a few more to make a full pass at, but wanted to sort of do a cross check that I was sort of aiming in a reasonable direction with you guys before I. And we could take it down more if you think it's useful, but I figure.
I'm making a comment. Just in the, I put your category, including I added other under implementation in the doc that is started, and I also made a comment how many different repos are using each of the tags in the top 200. In other words, is the top 200 skewed heavily towards extremely active repos, and is there another cut that we want to make it popular words?
Okay, makes sense. Yeah. So look at it without the solicitation. But anyhow, this was fun. Thank you.
Yeah, no, and I made the.
But I like, this is the sort of thing I like doing.
Yeah.
Which is finding patterns.
Yeah, no, and this is, I think this is super helpful. Like, I think I think it'll be useful for people to see what kinds of tags are being used, and that that somebody's done this work. And I think we can, you know, there's ways that we could have. I'm just thinking out loud. There's also maybe an interest in co-occurring tags.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
like I said, when you say co-occurring, are you thinking like patterns, like okay, CLA there, CLA not, things like that the bots may have calculated, or?
Well, like many issues and pull requests have more than one tag.
Oh, so multiple classifications or a solicitation and a classification.
Yeah, so like tag co-occurrence could be an indication of some kind of pattern. Maybe. It's a question I have, which I also just put into the document as a question.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, it's also interesting, literally, how quickly it tails down to about 2,000. So by the time you get to about the 100, like I say, that long tail sort of starts 10,000, 20,000.
Yeah, and then
realistically, you know, in the top 20, you've probably got the bulk of them.
Yeah.
But where are reasonable cut points would be another question too.
Yeah.
If you could equally well just say take the top 50 and say, okay, you know. But I am curious as to, of those top 200, which projects are doing it? Are we having a dominant thing?
Yeah. That's my first. You know, it's like I think as I look at these, I should have thought of that actually when I generated the list. I could have run that query to show how many different repos are using them. Okay. But I'm curious about that. I'll throw that into the same share.
Do you want me to just upload this actually to a Google Doc?
Yeah, I think that would.
And then I'll just put inside the same doc then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fine.
That would be great, and then I could actually add tabs for like how many different repositories have used each of these tags as well.
Sure. I'll do that after this call.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
Or I might just do it right now while we're doing it, so I doesn't forget, and I'll stop sharing. I'll just upload.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right.
Because if I don't do things now, they don't happen sometimes.
I am the same way. So I'm just gonna go. We're trying to close these meetings 10 minutes to the hour, so we've got about 7 minutes of time left.
So, for Lisa.
For Lisa, you're gonna figure out or look into, maybe I followed the wrong path when I tried to figure things out. But I looked at membership and then I looked at join Alyssa, and maybe that wasn't the.
Yeah, that's more for the membership, and do people want to formally join? And there's usually an info that we can that sometimes people click on, and we can redirect them.
So
What
maybe
you want
community,
is looking at the mail lists. Yeah, let's see.
Community is where to go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is good. Yeah, obviously I didn't find the right place to log in.
You don't really need to log in other than just set up an email account potentially to track things, but you can look at the repos and histories. Yeah, if you go to community, go to Develop, Elisa Tech, and all our minutes are visible online. And we've just finished having a workshop on Monday through Wednesday, and the sessions from that are all going to we're all recorded. Everyone agreed to let them be recorded, so we've got them recorded. And so you'll be able to get a pretty good overview. If you go to that website and you look under the news,
Yeah.
so at the bottom, you'll see a blog that lists all the sessions we had. A lot of people sign up.
Am I on the right page?
I'm not seeing screen share again, I'm afraid.
Oh, I wonder if it's so when I change tabs, I wonder if it's not showing the tab change.
I see this.
I think it's just nice. I think quite frankly, it's just, now I'm seeing it again. Okay. I think it's my thing. So yeah, Lisa, so if you scroll down on this one, scroll down this page, which one? Oh, you're in main? No, you don't want the main one. You want the Devel one. The community takes you right to Devel.
So if I go, lists, and if I ended up clicking lists from somewhere.
Go to elisa.tech.
Yeah.
And if you scroll to the bottom.
Wow.
Right now,
okay.
There's the news sitting there.
Yeah.
But move over to the May 13th one.
Okay.
Which one? Yeah. So we just had a session about the newcomers intro, what we're going after, what we're doing for strategy. So this was going to be, we would have had a workshop in person. We've had workshops in person. This was our first virtual one.
Right.
And the upside is we could tape it all. That was the upside.
Yeah.
And so in the next
always look on the bright side.
Yep. The next couple of days, the links will be available so people can sort of figure out what's going on. But I'd say watch the newcomers if you want to understand what we're doing with Elisa once it's posted. And I just go to Elisa. Yeah, I don't think we'll update that blog. We'll just put a new blog out with the links and everything. And in fact, just a second,
Okay.
just a sec. I can do something even more efficient for you, which is our notes. We did all our notes publicly as well, and they'll be having the links to everything. Okay, Lisa. Yeah, I need to hit reboot on my machine. It's painful.
Well, we've only got 3.5 minutes left, so.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Let's see if I can call it up fast enough or not. It's just being a bit slow. There it is. I did it. How wonderful. Okay. There. Here, if people want to see how that workshop went. And so we took notes as we went along. This is where we're adding the slides.
That went to the chat?
Yep.
Okay. When I'm sharing, I get weird, like I have to do weird navigation to get back to the chat.
So if you're curious about what we're doing with the safety, this is where we're starting to, get thoughts organized and things like that.
I'll add that link to the CHAOSS Risk
Okay.
notes.
Cool. Yeah.
It's okay to share that in these notes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's open to everyone. Like I say, we try to keep this project as transparent as we can.
Okay.
There's nothing, you know, there's not too much that's, other than the board minutes, they're confidential.
Yeah. Matt Snell, do you want to say anything about the change, the updates that you made to the Augur SPDX
Sure.
project?
So for the past while, when we needed to add repository scans through Nomos, we were basically someone would say something about it to me, and then I would spend like a day getting the scans done because it was very manual. So what we did was we took a lot of time to well, I took about most of yesterday to automate the process, and now it doesn't work so monolithically. It's like kind of search for repositories, and all of the stuff that should have been automated before is now automated. So we should be getting it put as a worker into Augur soon, so that people can do it themselves without doing all the work I did. Because I realized Sean asked me to type up a guide to how to run it, and I put up like a 20-point bullet point guide, and I realized at that point that yeah, I should probably get this running in a way that I don't have to spend a whole day every time.
That's great, Matt. Awesome.
Yeah. No, I'm very, very, very happy. I haven't tested it yet, but I'm really excited about it.
Well, then don't be excited yet.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
I'm just kidding.
I mean, so is it in the worker directory of an Augur branch, or is it in the Augur SPDX project?
It is under I think it's called Augur Jenkins SPDX Mat, or Augur Jenkins Mat SPDX.
Okay.
I just tested it with the Jenkins stuff that you copied for me.
Okay, so that's the branch that we would work on merging.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also the updates to the config, because I added a couple things that you can customize.
Yep. And I messaged Carter this morning.
Actually, well, Gabe had reached out to me and said I can help you make that a worker, so I'm talking to him probably next week too.
Okay, that's awesome. I'm trying to find the risk notes again. Okay.
Just a second, I'm going to see if I can do the upload right now too, and then put the link in the chat.
All right. We are at time.
Yep.
I'll point out. It's the tag classification link that you were going to put in.
Yeah, I'm just doing the upload right now. Yeah, it's issue tags is the folder they're in.
Did you send a chat message or?
I'm trying.
It's still uploading.
I'm trying to get it to upload. Yeah. There we go. Showing me the right one.
I've never done annotation in Zoom before.
That was the source of that was the source of the Zoom bombing I saw recently.
Oh, really? Annotations?
Yeah, someone didn't lock it down and had an open call.
Oh,
And
okay.
someone started drawing obscene, well, they started drawing body parts and actions on it. Let's put it that way.
Things that should not be drawn.
Yeah.
In any case.
Yeah, and the fun thing was it was a CERT hosted call too.
Ouch.
Yeah, it was pretty ouch. So it was definitely a, oh, you're an interesting target, I'm gonna go have fun with you type of thing, I think was happening there. Yeah. Oh dear. Let me see if it's come in yet. Anyhow, if not, I'll try to put it in, send you an email or put it in the notes from today.
All right, I'll send you an email with the note. You got it?
Maybe, yes, just a sec. Let's just make it open with the right thing. Open up Google Sheets. Do that conversion, please. Yep, we've got it. Okay, good.
Oh.
I'll fix the perms in a minute, but you've got the link now.
An
Okay.
upset. Yeah. Okay. You sent the. Oh yeah.
Okay, I
I've
have
got the link. Yeah. It's
perms-
since
the
I'm
perms are-
screen
yeah, the
since I'm screen sharing, all of the chat stuff is.
not showing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got to fix the access, and it's still trying to load everything into it.
Okay.
So I'll fix the access in a minute. Okay.
Yep. No problem.
Yeah.
I'm gonna copy the link and put it in the notes. Once
And
I find the right link for the notes.
I'll just make it such that anyone can edit in
Somebody
it.
did it. Perfect.
I'll just make it so anyone can edit. Okay. I don't think we need to lock it down. But,
Yeah. Okay.
okay.
Thanks for doing that, Kate.
Thanks.
I'll let everyone go as one of my children is crying about something. If you probably hear that.
Take care. Sorry, Pat. Sorry.
Sorry.
Bye, guys.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.
By the way, Matt, do you think you can hang around for just a moment?
Yeah, you got to be really quick. I have a 10 o'clock that I have to prepare for. What's up?
Okay, I just wanted to ask.
Meet for this at all? I'm stopping.
Yeah.